So the hot sauce industry as a whole just tends to be a little bit over the top macho, I guess that's the best way to put it. Have you had any issues at all?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So I've always just existed in kind of male areas, and pretty comfortably. And honestly, nothing prepared me for all of that. Didn't really prepare me for entering the kitchen world.
Yeah.
Just restaurant kitchens. I, naively just thought, cooking, that's a woman's job. So I'm going to be stepping into a woman's world. No, professional cooking is a man's world. So yeah, the hot sauce world is interesting. I'm grateful to live in a time when there are enough men who are not sexist assholes that I can choose not really to participate in that.
Welcome to Flavor Balance Heat, the podcast for hot sauce lovers and makers. I'm Spike,
And I'm Zach.
and today we're speaking with Claire George. Hi, Claire.
Hello.
How are you today?
I'm good. Looking forward to talking about hot sauce.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this episode for quite a while. So tell us your hot sauce history, just how you got started with spicy foods. You're a chef though, correct?
Well, no. I mean, I'm not, well, I don't know. How do you even define that
I
word?
know.
No, actually my formal education is in computer programming.
Oh, wow.
So that's what I went to college for, computer programming and applied mathematics. I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area. And my dad's a programmer. So it kind of felt natural. I love it. I'm a big nerd, all that fun. And then when I was getting closer to college, I was like, I'm going to do something else. Decided to bake. That was my hobby at that time. And so I started Butterfly Bakery 20 years ago. And for a long time, it was just me baking in the middle of the night in a rented coffee shop in downtown Montpelier. And then we finally built our own kitchen after a while, and got stuff going there. And that was good. And then around the time that actually, when my husband and I first met, we kind of bonded over our foodiness. So we're both really big foodies, and I was telling him about stuff I was making, and he was telling me about stuff he was making, and he mentioned that he made a batch of hot sauce, and I was like, "Huh, never thought about making hot sauce. It's a condiment, you didn't make that." And so then our first Christmas that we were dating, we were like, let's make some hot sauce. Let's buy some peppers at the grocery store, and let's cook up some hot sauce. And I have to imagine that you guys have, and probably a lot of people listening to this have, made the mistake of browning chili peppers in a pan. It's a really bad idea. Gassed ourselves out.
Yep.
Right. We named that first sauce Cough Cough Wheeze Wheeze. And then fast forward a few years, and I started experimenting with stuff at the farmer's market. So that wasn't hot sauce at first. It was baked goods, macaroons, cake, different things to try out. And whatever didn't sell, I would trade with the farmers at the farmer's market with whatever they had left over. And Vermont is a place that grows really good chili peppers, but there hasn't historically been a huge market for it. It's not a really, spicy chili head kind of community here. And so they would have chili peppers left over at the end of the market, and I would trade them their handful of pounds of chili peppers for, my leftover slices of chocolate cake. And then because I had that experience making hot sauce with my husband, I would then turn that into hot sauce. Cause what else do you do with like 5 pounds of chili peppers? And so then I would sell that at the next farmer's market, and that would sell out. And so then I was like, this is kind of cool. Maybe I should do more of this. And then, so then I was kind of actively getting chili peppers to sell hot sauces at the farmer's market. And then a friend of mine, or somebody who's a really good friend of mine now, at the time, he was the partner of a former intern of mine, a baking intern. We used to have a culinary school here in town. And he reached out and said, I'm growing a whole bunch of chili peppers. Do you want them? And I was like, sure. Well, it turns out a whole bunch meant like 800 pounds.
Oh my goodness.
And I was like, okay. And so I just started cranking on making hot sauce. I didn't know what else to do. I didn't know how to freeze peppers back then. I didn't know how to do any of that. I think I heard you guys talking in a recent podcast about not knowing the laws around making hot sauce. Definitely did not know them back then. Fortunately, looking back in retrospect, I did it all right. I wasn't doing all the filings and stuff, but the procedures, the safety procedures, I was good on that front. So didn't kill anybody.
Well,
And I
having
was
been a
selling it here
baker,
in
I bet
Vermont.
that helped a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I knew all the regular health code laws. I had
Yeah.
actually done a little bit of acidified canning with somebody else. Just like she was like, "Hey, I'm canning some lemon curd. Can you come help me?" Like just that basic level kind of taught me about the hot fill hold process and what I needed to do there. And, when I realized I couldn't, do a boiling water cat bath on a woozy bottle, then I was like, well, I remember I did this with Pat. And, so I kind of pieced it together. And but yeah, so then I got those like 800 pounds of peppers and I started selling it still just at the farmer's market. And we sold through it so fast. We sold so much of it. And I was like, I gotta do this. But I knew, I was a baker. I knew how to order flour and maple syrup. I didn't know how to order chili peppers. And so I went with what I knew, which was how to work with small farms. I reached out to the farmers that I knew at the farmers market, and I set up my first contracts for chili peppers. That first year, I only contracted for 800 pounds because that's what I got before. Seems like a good idea again. And then as I was getting ready to get started at the larger level, sell to stores, working with a process authority, working in a kitchen with kettles, and there was a rented kitchen that we could work in, and I was going through all that and I realized 800 pounds was not going to be enough.
What
Again,
year was
not
that first year? I'm sorry to interrupt, but
yeah, no, that would have been that first year that we were ready to sell in stores, I think would have been 2015.
okay.
And that was, yeah. So that's where I contracted for about 800 pounds with Dog River Farm, which is here in Montpelier. And then I realized that wasn't going to be enough. And I'm glad I did realize that because they're in like a really like foggy hollow. They're right on a riverbank. They got totally decimated in the summer's flooding, but they've always had trouble getting peppers to turn color. So then I reached out to some other farmers saying, help me. And they said, well, we're going to send an email to the fruit and veggie listserv, which is a thing that Vermont has. And so they sent it out saying, anybody got peppers? This person wants to buy a bunch of peppers. So I was able to get about 2,500 pounds of peppers that first year.
Oh, good.
And blasted right through it. We do really pepper forward sauces. Again, I didn't know what I was doing in the beginning. And I was like, I'm sure if I just mix in a lot of vinegar, I'm going to have enough acid. And so I was like, it's all peppers and vinegar and salt and, maybe a couple other things, but that's what I did. And, so we use a lot of peppers in every of our batches. And it meant that we have to buy a lot of peppers and we still buy. This year, we did kind of a little reset just based on being overstocked in our freezer. But last year we bought almost 100,000 pounds of Vermont grown produce.
And do you have to, because of the seasons there, obviously they don't grow well in the winter. I went to school in Amherst, Mass, quite a ways south, but still East Coast. I
Yeah.
can't imagine that the season has to be pretty narrow for peppers there.
Yeah, so that's our biggest limiting factor. And so if we get an early frost or something like that happens, it can really change the yield that we get.
Yeah.
So we have to over order to basically accommodate for that. And then we end up with years like this one where we just have too much because we over ordered and then we have too much. I put in my orders with farmers in January. We order enough peppers that they're really planning their whole crop plan around our orders and depending on the farm. So we put in the order in January, they order the seeds. They start them. It varies by farm, but usually, I think they're starting them in like March and April, indoors in greenhouses. And then as soon as they're frost free for their zone or for their area, they're putting them in the ground. And then, especially with the super hots, we're really running right up against the end of, the potential of frost. This year has been a funny year. We've had a really kind of low and slow, mellow fall. So tonight there's a frost warning, but this is the first one that we've had. And most of my farms, we've gotten all the peppers we need for this year, so we're fine. But I don't think most of our farms are even going to be affected by tonight's frost. So.
And you freeze them?
Yeah, we've got a 2,000 square foot freezer.
Wow.
bigger
Oh,
than my house.
man.
Yeah,
It's
maybe friend.
huge. It's 11-foot ceilings. 11-foot ceilings, 2,000 square feet. Like it'd be some prime real estate if it had windows.
My kid preps our batches, and if I told her that there was even such a thing as a 2,000 square foot freezer, she would be very jealous.
We had to custom build it when we moved into our building. Our old space, we had two 350 square foot freezers, and then we had a temporary truck outside just because we moved in our building October of 2020, so it was later than we wanted to, and we'd already started to bring in that year's harvest, and so we rented a freezer truck just to noisily run in our front driveway
Oh my
for a
goodness.
couple months. And even the two that we had use up about the same amount of power as our like efficiently built, tightly sealed, brand new 2,000 square foot freezer.
Wow. That's amazing.
Like Claire is like a code nerd. So if you have any questions about the CFRs, she'd be the one to ask.
You know, I wish I had known ahead of time, I definitely would have come out. I'm gonna blank right now. I'm like on the spot. Oh my gosh.
Well,
So
if you have any questions in general, I'm one of these people who compulsively has to answer questions. So like
That's
if you're like,
great.
what does this one mean? I'll be like, I'm so busy. Okay, yeah, let me go figure it out.
So,
So
the way Claire and I connected, I changed the serving size on my nutrition panel, and I don't know, somehow it came on one of the group discussions, and I was like, I feel like people just put 1 teaspoon so they can claim no sugar, and but she jumped on my ass. She's like, no, I do it because that's the FDA. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? And then she went and scoured the CFR and found it for me. I was
I
like,
love that. My
Yeah.
goodness.
and that was my first real experience with Claire.
That's awesome.
Not unhated though.
No,
I
that kind
very
of
much
stuff's great.
appreciate it.
That group I always try to be so careful in. So I don't
Yeah.
I don't say a word in that group unless I can back it up with fact. I feel like people can get a little crazy in there sometimes.
Yeah, it gets a little drama filled every once in a while. Yeah.
I did get into a big argument with somebody once, and it was a really good, it was early on when I was not quite so cautious in there. And it was a really interesting moment of kind of one of those moments where you're both arguing something totally different. You're one's yelling red, the other one's yelling yellow, red, yellow. And then you realize you're both right. And you're
Yeah.
just looking at two different sides of the same disc or something. It was another sauce maker, and it was a question about pH meters. And I said that a pH meter will read high when it's hot. And he was like, no, it'll read high when it's low. And I was like, I've used my pH meter for years now. It always reads high when it's hot. Like, what are you talking about? And he's like, no, it absolutely does read low. What are you talking about? And I went and looked it up, and everything was saying, oh, it totally reads low when it's hot. And I was like, crap, I'm so confused. My meter has always read high when it's hot. It's because my meter, I've used the same brand of meter the entire time I've been doing business because
Oh,
I know it, and it adjusts for the temperature. It just does it really badly.
got it.
Is that a
Yep.
para?
It's not, it's a X stick. Like I can send you the link. I think it was like one of the ones that was like abundantly available when I first got it. And then now I have to dig for it a little bit just so that I'm just like, it'll always give us the same, we always know how to use it because we just keep using the same one.
Yeah.
It makes it easier.
So not only is Claire versed in CFR regulations, she also has USDA or is working on USDA stuff.
Oh.
Or
Yeah. Well, so it's we make caramel. We bought a caramel company, a goat's milk caramel company about a year ago. So we do, hot sauce is what we're best known for at this point, but we still
Yeah.
do bake, and we make a lot of other food as well. Our inspiration is really just what we can make with what grows in Vermont. That's what we do.
That's awesome. And as somebody who went from chef to hot sauce, I absolutely can see going from baker to hot sauce is easier because it was a real mental change for me to not be able to change things on the fly.
Yeah. Well, so what's interesting there is that I actually do like changing things. I do like to adjust and tweak. I mean, I'm a baker more than I'm a chef in that way. So I probably don't mean the exact same thing by that as you do. But even in baking, I know how to edit and to change, to respond to the ingredients. I have a restricted diet. So my baking really came from modifying recipes to do what I wanted them to do. So even with the hot sauce, I've figured out a way to kind of build my business and my brand on the on being able to make those changes. So we do, besides like the 10 flavors that we sell in stores and sell in big batches, we've got an ever changing rotation of micro batches. So at any given time at this point, we probably have like 15 different micro batches that we make like a 12 case batch, and then we might never make it again. And so we're always playing around there. I mean, I'm sure you guys know acidified food rules are set by the FDA, but then every state manages them differently.
Yep.
And so I've seen a lot of arguments happen on the hot sauce Facebook group about people saying, no, the FDA says this. No, your state says that. And Vermont doesn't have they don't have really any extra rules beyond the FDA's rules. So California has some really intense rules. Everybody has to have their processes approved through UC Davis. There's just a lot of levels, a lot more levels in California than there are in Vermont. So that gave me a lot of freedom that I think a lot of sauce makers don't have in their states. But then I used to send a lot of recipes off to process authorities. Oh my God, so many recipes. We worked with University of Maine and Cornell, and then a lab down in Massachusetts were our three. And we were practically on a weekly basis, we were sending things off to the lab. And I mean, I always knew that it was going to get approved. There was no question there. I knew what all the rules were, and it was just a formality. And then when COVID hit, the University of Maine and Cornell both shut down. And they were not an option for us to get our process approvals through. And the lab down in Massachusetts, I think they were just swamped. I don't really remember what the issue was with them. They were a lot more expensive as well. And so I reached out to a Vermont food safety guy. He's like kind of the foremost authority in Vermont in food safety, and he does all the HACCP and FSMA trainings out there. And I was like, can you be my process authority? I need somebody to do it. And he was like, why don't you do it?
Oh, wow.
I was like, what? I was like, what do you mean? Like, do I have that option? And I do. The FDA really, they set a lot of rules for and define what acidified makers can do. The only guiding rule about who can be a process authority is you have to be an expert by training or experience. That's the line about who can be a process authority.
Oh, wow.
Right. I know. And I really researched into that because I was like, I do not want to get in trouble here.
Right.
And we don't do any process approval for anybody outside of our company. We only do it for the productions that we do inside of our company. So we actually don't even make, besides what people need to send to like events and stores and stuff like that, we don't give letters even saying that, because they can't take the recipe and go make it somewhere else with our process approval, because we know what our internal rules and controls are. Whereas if they took that somewhere else, then we can't control that. So, but the reality is we're the one who's really on the hook if anything goes wrong as the maker, as the producer. And so we're our own process authority now. And we just had our FDA inspection back in December, and the guy who was inspecting it, I was telling him that, and he was like, well, I don't think I've ever encountered somebody who's their own process authority. And I was like, nope, but see, look, and he broke out his book and he was like, yep. Okay. You're good. All good. So
that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Idaho is like that as well. I mean, when we got certified originally in Washington, I've talked about this a bunch of times on the podcast, and then we moved over to Idaho, and I called the health lady, and she said, the FDA covers you. Idaho doesn't want anything to do with you. So yeah.
Yeah. So that's a long way around to saying, because you asked about USDA. So yeah, now we make caramel, and
Oh, that's
it's
amazing.
actually the Agency of Agriculture in Vermont who controls milk handling. So we have a milk handler's license, and it's, very similar to the FDA rules, but just like a little bit different. It's like a little shift over. Our raw milk is supposed to be, it has to be in a different room than our cooked product, which is weird. So we actually just put in walls that can fall down. I mean, like there's on like a roller up at the top of the ceiling, and we can drop them down around our milk tanks, because that was the only way we could achieve like a separate room.
Awesome.
So, yeah, weird things.
So you've got a lot going on between baking and caramel and hot sauce, and wow, that's amazing.
Hey, Spike, do you notice a trend when we have women on the podcast? The women tend to be smarter than we've had, just by like their day job, what they were doing before they got into hot sauce. Like we just had Julie on, and she is like super highly intelligent.
Yeah, absolutely.
Crazy.
Yeah. Well, and how's that been for you? So the hot sauce industry as a whole just tends to be a little bit over the top macho, I guess that's the best way to put it. Have you had any issues at all?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I mentioned, I used to be a computer programmer. I was raised primarily by my dad. I used to be into bowling. I've always just existed in kind of male areas, and pretty comfortably. I mean, I'm fortunate to have, I didn't grow up in the 1950s. I grew up in Berkeley, where so pretty much my whole life, there's been an awareness of, hey, sexism is bad. And honestly, nothing prepared me for all of that. Didn't really prepare me for entering the kitchen world. Just restaurant kitchens. I, naively just thought, cooking, that's a woman's job. So I'm going to be stepping into a woman's world. No, professional cooking is a man's world. And so, I remember one moment in my very first professional cooking job. I was a baker in a health food store co-op kitchen. And one of the guys thought up a dirty joke and thought that I somehow would have too refined of ears to hear it. And so he went and whispered it into our kitchen supervisor's ears. This kitchen supervisor doesn't drink, doesn't swear, and thinks that, dirty jokes are horrible. I, on the other hand, can swear the bluest streak there is. And and he got kind of roundly served from our supervisor. So yeah, the hot sauce world is interesting. I'm grateful to live in a time when there are enough men who are not sexist assholes that that I can choose not really to participate in that. When I was building my current building, when we moved in there October of 2020, not only was I a woman, I was also the business owner, and I was acting general manager or general contractor of building of all the build out that we were doing. And a lot of men in construction had a lot of issues with that. Concrete was the worst. That was we went through several concrete guys before I found one who would literally actually look at me when he talked. Wow. And, I remember we had a guy working on one of our, we had issues with one of our boilers. We just put in a new boiler and we had to get a tech from the company. The regulator was just improperly, something was wrong with the regulator. And so he came out and he would just direct every question, every answer to the plumber. And I was the one who had been working on it. And my plumber's fantastic. I don't remember exactly what the issue was, but I said something to him about the, water column inches and the regulator. And he looked at me and he looked at the plumber and he was like, wow, she really knows what she's talking about, doesn't she? It was like, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. Not that he wouldn't say that about a guy saying anything, but he's going to say, yeah.
Yeah. So I just, I'm in a point of privilege being the owner of my company. I don't necessarily have a glass ceiling above me. I make a point of, talking about my kid. I've got to go and pick up my kids. I've got to do all of those things because that should be a normal part of life. And the pandemic actually really helped with that, where a lot of men were home with their kids too. And,
Yes.
so that kind of helped normalize that aspect, that you could be a professional and be doing well in life, and yes, still have children that you want to go and see their ballet performance of. And so I really try to utilize that privilege in a good way. And my kitchen supervisor who runs my entire kitchen is also a woman. And so I try, the kitchen world's very male dominated. So we make sure to put in our job ads that it's a woman owned company. So they're not going to have to deal with the same sexism and frustration that they might be accustomed to dealing with in other kitchens. And, it's comforting to just be able to roll my eyes sometimes when I see attitudes. I think I remember you guys talking about on an earlier episode about that thread in the hot sauce group about somebody wanting to buy sauce from a female hot sauce maker, and a bunch
Yeah.
of
Was that you? Did you say that? The message that was on there?
there was,
I think it actually was Julie that
yeah,
said it.
Julie
Oh, was
did a
it
lot
Julie?
of the commenting
Got
on
it.
there.
Yeah.
I actually don't remember if I replied. I definitely went through and liked a bunch of stuff. I think by the time I came in, I was kind of like,
Yeah.
and it was, but I remember one of our customers, who orders a fair amount from us, said something along the lines of, this is a stupid question. In all my years of selling hot sauce, I've never been asked this question before. And, this isn't something that people care about. As he replied to a comment of a customer wanting to buy hot sauce, asking this very question.
So Julie, I couldn't remember which one of you, because Zach, I think originally thought it was you, and
Yeah,
then we found
thought
out
it
it
was
was
her,
Julie.
but
And I think that's what you said in the earlier podcast. But yeah, I
Yeah.
think it was Julie who said that.
Oh, I wish when we had Julie on, well, we'll have to have Julie on again and talk about it, because I think that was great. It was so well stated. And for those out there listening, I Zach, I'm so bad about requoting things.
I mean, I can't really quote it verbatim, but it was something along the lines like, well, why can't you just do both?
Yeah, the question in the group was if anybody knew of any women-owned hot sauce companies out there, and then a ton of flack from guys going, well, why does it have to be women-owned? Blah blah blah. And it's like, you can support good, good hot sauce. And it's like, no, you can support good hot sauce, and you can support women-owned hot sauce, and that's okay.
Yeah. Well,
So.
and I think it's a really important message, and it's really important to help. I mean, in any area, it's not just women, it's not just people of color, it's in any area of people who have not had adequate representation in that field, to just elevate them a little, push them a little farther forward, because that representation matters, and
Yes.
it just, and I even, one of the elements of representation that I really gravitate toward is, I'm a really strong woman. I cannot be anything but who I am. I have a personality, and I'm a strong woman, and I love seeing other strong women out there achieving whatever that is that they're achieving. And whenever I see that, I gravitate toward it, because I'm like, that's so cool. Like, I love the artist Pink. Love listening to her music. She's clearly a strong woman.
Yeah.
And it just, so even as a strong person, I still need that representation. I still need to see women doing that and being like, okay, cool, I can do that too.
Well, and it's an energy thing, not just, there's a certain energy. When you were talking earlier about kitchens being male dominated, when I was on the line, I preferred being in kitchens that had a nice balance of men and women. Things ran better. There's I don't want to get too crazy, but podcasts. So Zach and I have been talking about someday, at some point, having a third person, but we're both insistent that it should be a woman, because I've seen many podcasts where well, we both talked about this. I shouldn't say we've talked about how we've seen many podcasts where it just becomes, a sausage fest. It's just a bunch of dudes talking about, dude perspectives, and the energy is kind of just lopsided. And so I think it's, in our kitchen for our hot sauce, we have almost all women just by choice. They all want to work for us, which is an honor. And women run our hot sauce completely. All of our leads are women, and it's got a great energy. So
My Hottest Life is actually a woman-owned company, isn't it?
not anymore. It was,
Oh,
well,
that's right. That's right.
yeah. So my wife was the owner originally, but now we've merged with another company. I do Vandal pepper sauces and Irish spikes, and then we merged both companies. So now we have 5 owners, 3 men and 2 women. So we're a good mix.
Yeah, our leadership team is a mix of men and women, and it's a nice balance. And there's studies that show that groups of people, I want to say I heard this on like Hidden Brain or something on NPR, that if you have a group of people who are mixed gender and mixed race, that they do better at tasks than if it is all one gender or all one race. And that's just bringing that diversity of opinions.
I like to use the example that makes perfect sense to me, by the way, but I like Howard Stern is a great example of somebody who, like, if you watched or listened to Howard Stern 20 years ago and you watch now, he's always had a woman, a black woman co-host with him.
Robin.
Yeah, Robin. And that energy, I believe, has been essential in this, growing up that he's done over the years. And it's really important. And it's not like she's gone out of her way to scold him at the wrong times. It's just, that energy changes things, and it's great. I love seeing that. So,
Yeah. Well, and, and it's, I've definitely been guilty of, having a couple people walk up to my booth at the farmer's market looking at the hot sauce, and I start talking to the man because that's my assumption of who's there. And then the woman starts, asking me all the questions, and I'm like, oh, pivot. We've got a different person interested. And I love seeing that.
Yeah. Yeah, I've noticed more and more lately. You know how you always have the couple that walks up and one person steps up because they're the one into hot sauce and the other one steps back. I always gravitate towards the person who steps back when I'm talking to them at farmer's market, because I want to let them know that we have sauces for them too.
Yeah.
But I'm seeing more and more that where it used to be the male that would step up, and then now I'm seeing more of the male stepping back and the woman stepping up, and it's nice to see that mix, that changing of dynamic.
Yeah. Yeah. And actually, even, in just the broadening interest in spicy, I'm seeing more children.
Yeah.
That's when my children don't like spicy food at all, probably because the spicy food we have in our house is probably a little too much to start a child on. But I used to do spicy chocolate truffles. I started those, 20 years ago when I first started the bakery, and children never went near that. And then through the years, as I was demoing that, more and more children were like, ooh, dark chocolate, that's my favorite. Ooh, spicy. Yeah, I'll have that one. Like, you're 9. Like, what? Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, y'all. I'm not feeling great right this very second.
Oh,
So
I'm
if I'm
sorry.
making funny noises over here, that's why.
That's all right. That's all right.
I'm just waiting for the ibuprofen to kick in.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. Yeah.
I'm down to twice a day. I'm not eating it 4 times a day anymore. So,
That's
Are
good.
you getting new teeth soon?
tomorrow I go in and have my
Nice.
hopefully get the impressions done, and then I have teeth later tomorrow. Thank
Nice.
God, because
That's awesome.
I don't like sounding like that, but it's okay. It's just temporary.
There you go.
Yeah.
So, all right, I'm going to change gears a little bit. What's your favorite sauce that didn't sell as well as you'd like?
So that's a funny question. I feel like I do a lot of like throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks. Like that's just, we do a ton of that. And so, we've had a couple sauces. So back, oh gosh, 2000, maybe 18, 19, we came out with a line of beer hot sauces. We had this big focus on beer hot sauces, and a couple of them didn't do very well, and we ended up discontinuing them. And it's funny because like one of the ones that didn't do well was our peppercorn porter, and people keep asking for it. So we've had a lot of these sauces that like don't do well, and we go, oh, okay, whatever, toss them aside. And then all of a sudden there's this like resurgence of interest that happens like after it's long since sold out, after we've discontinued it. We had people who wanted us to special make them a whole batch of peppercorn porter for their wedding. Like they loved it that much. They wanted it for their wedding as like wedding favors. And we did another one, corn whiskey, that again, it just didn't move. It didn't move. And then it sat there. I mean, sauces change flavor, as they said. Yep. And it was probably like a year later, we still had it and we were still selling it. All of a sudden, everybody was like, that's the sauce I want. It's amazing. And okay, let me make another batch of that and let it sit around for a year.
I think that's the story of how Worcestershire was created. I don't know if you know that, but like,
No.
I think it was like the King of England at the time wanted something made that they had tasted from the Orient, and they created it, and it tasted awful. Like everybody hated it, and they stuck it down like all these casks down under, I don't know, the castle or whatever they were in. And like 5 years later, they cracked it open and went, oh, this is amazing. So yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
I totally butchered that story, but that's the basics of it.
Well,
Mike doesn't have a very good memory.
No, I'm awful.
It's so funny what'll resonate with people and what doesn't, and what they go for, what they go back for. Honestly, we really haven't even released it. We kind of have released it. So we did a sauce for the Heatonist for their sub box, a maple coffee sauce. And it was actually supposed to be that just came out, I don't know, last month or something like that. And we were actually supposed to do a different sauce for their sub box, and we had some ingredient sourcing issues, and we had been working on this recipe of just changing how we do the coffee. And so we kind of revamped the entire recipe, and I knew they had our old recipe and really liked it. So I was like, hey, we have ingredient sourcing issue on this other sauce, how about this one? So I sent them a sample of that. They liked it. It was utter madness to get it out because it coincided with all the flooding we had here in Vermont. So fortunately, the coffee that was supposed to go into it, because it was something like 120 pounds of coffee that we needed to put in this thing, and of coffee beans. And they had roasted it on Monday, and Tuesday was all the flooding. So they had the coffee, but we couldn't actually get to them because they were cut off from the flooding. And then finally one road opened and somebody was able to go and get it. And then we were rushing to get everything made in time to get it out for the day. It was lots of craziness. And I adore that sauce. Like this feels like, when you work on a sauce that's like, it has some difficult technique, and you've been doing something different, and I'm just like, I'm so proud of that sauce and the way the coffee flavor comes out and the layers, like all of that. I love it. And it's been getting, as far as I can tell, it's been getting really good reviews or really good comments, but there's always a couple people who haven't liked it. And I'm always kind of like, no, the sauce is like perfection. Like you can't not like this.
Yeah.
Coffee is an interesting thing too, because I think we've got 3 or 4 sauces with coffee. We've got a whiskey and coffee. We've got, this is a great one. So I had this brilliant idea because I just do crazy stuff. Like basically just what you do. And I had this brilliant idea to partner with an energy drink company on the west side over by Seattle. And I thought, then, they'll be pushing us there, and we'll push them here. We're in a college town, so that's great. And so they have something called Coffee Pop, and it's coffee and soda. And I thought, it'll be like kind of a barbecue-y thing. It'll be great. So I made it. It's a good sauce. It's very mild. Right. And people, I put on the label energy drink under the thing, and nobody wanted it because they all thought, it just didn't sell. I've still got a case in the
well, yeah, when you say energy, coffee, barbecue-y, like that sounds great, but when you say energy drink, it makes it seem like it's going to taste like Kool-Aid or like protein or something.
Yeah, or Red Bull. That's the thing everybody said. I don't want a Red Bull hot sauce.
Did you hear about those Mountain Dew flavored hot dogs?
What?
Yeah, they have 2. They have the regular Mountain Dew flavor and then the melon Mountain Dew. Like melon flavor.
Yeah, I'm already
Yeah.
not feeling good. So if we could make it at ease, that would be.
Well, long story short, I'm gonna try your maple one because that sounds really,
Yeah.
really good.
Yeah. I can send you some. I can send you some.
Oh,
I really
that's
like it.
we just
It's
we discontinued our whiskey and coffee and brought it back as a micro batch, and it
yeah,
elevated all the things. So
nice.
speaking of coffee, so we've
Coffee.
done the
I like
coffee 3 different ways.
Yeah.
We've brewed it with the vinegar, like just we've used instant, and then we've brewed it with water and added the water.
Yep.
Have a local company make you cold brew coffee.
I mean, we could do that. We have a local company that we work with all the time, and have since the beginning. But so I'm working on a steak sauce that's going to have coffee in it, and I'm trying to decide which of those 3 methods I'm going to do, and which works best for you. I'm just curious if you don't mind
Yeah.
answering.
So I think the key for us, the thing that was the real technique issue that we really had to figure out was not letting the sauce boil. Once the coffee is in there, we don't boil it. And that is a really fine art to get it above the 200-degree kill step stage and not let it boil. I have a deep aversion to burnt coffee. I hate burnt coffee with every fiber of my being. And that was the trick for me, was how can we add this coffee and use real coffee, because that's what we do. You know, we work, you know, instead of a coffee extract or something like that, we have to work with a local company. How do we do that without getting it to boil? And how do we do that at scale? Like, it's one thing to watch it really carefully on a stove and stand there and stir. And we were doing it, our method, the previous method we had kept it only, we could do it at micro, but we couldn't scale it up effectively. And the realization that we could make it this particular way and scale it up to the amount that we could do, you know, enough for a hedonist order, was the
Oh,
trick.
scaling up is the hardest thing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I also bring everything up 200 degrees just because, you know, our hot one situation and our co-packer problem.
Yeah.
Well, I will
Right.
never, ever fucking have to go through that. So everything's 200 degrees now.
Yeah.
But because your elevation is probably much higher than where I'm at, I would have.
No, we're at like 200 feet.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I should say Montpelier is at like 200 feet. I think in Barrie we might be at like 500 feet or something, but we're not high up. Yeah.
Heard.
That's nice.
Just northern latitude. That's it.
Oh, well, Vermont's a good skiing place, isn't? So I just.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We've got mountains. I'm just not on one.
Well, that kills that question. You just
Yeah,
being extra safe, you know. I like to argue people with 170 degrees for 30 minutes. I'm like, why don't you just bring it up another 30 degrees in 4 minutes and be done?
Right.
Absolutely.
Well, and that's actually an interesting. So we do a lot of co-packing, and we have a cold fill sauce that we make for a client. We don't do it for ourselves. We do it for client. And the FDA rules on a cold fill process are just, they pay a lot of attention to those processes when you submit them. You know, I mean, I'm sure you guys know, when you submit something, you know, regular hot fill hold acidified process, they don't say boo. They go, okay, sounds good, and moves on. But the cold fill process, they go over it in great detail. They ask me questions, all of that to make sure it's right. This particular one it's got preservatives in it, so it's not a particularly problematic one or anything like that. But that process of going through that with the FDA was really interesting. And what I learned through it and through our inspection in December, which I get along really well with regulators because I probably ask them more questions than they ask me. And so what I realized is that the FDA will let you do pretty much whatever you want as long as you can prove that it's safe.
Oh, yeah.
And you can prove it with, you know, with methods that have already existed, and, you know, citations of studies that have already existed, or you can do your own study. And that's why the rules are from the FDA's rules are pretty vague, that really it's a lot of the detail is set at state level or you know, in by a process authority, but the FDA's rules are set pretty vague because you just have to prove that it's safe. So in that, I remember I read a study while working on the cold fill about the microbial safety of salad dressings and mayonnaises. And because those are cold fill, obviously that's not with preservatives, that's through acidification. But it was really fascinating because it was basically, I mean, I don't know, I feel like the narrative we all hear about mayonnaise is like you kill people, like it sits out in the sun and people die. And just reading about this and about the how the bacterial count would be diminished over time, and how giving at least, I think it was like 5 days or something like that, actually increases the safety as opposed to decreasing, which is kind of the attitude we have about everything. And so, which also made me think back to the lab of scientists who made alcoholic eggnog and tracked the food safety of it to say, the more alcohol you put in it, the longer you let it sit, the safer it is.
I'd like to be a part of that. Well, not anymore, but
Yeah.
at one
Yeah,
time,
right.
I would like to have been a part of that study.
So if I remember, there's a pH cutoff at to what point you can cold fill, right? Like it has to be pretty.
Yeah, 3.8.
Yeah.
And I did work with a lab on that one because I'm not an expert in that. So, we worked with a lab down in Massachusetts to help us with that process.
That was
And
gonna
then
be
they
one of
also
my
helped
questions.
us through. Yeah, they helped us through all of the questions and everything that the FDA was asking, and make sure that we were.
And then
hitting
you have
everything
to
the way we're
cap
supposed
and invert for.
Or I should, no, well, so actually, I said 3.8 just because I'm sure somebody listening will know it is actually 3.5.
Yeah,
3.45.
I thought it was
It's
like
3.5.
3.2
Yeah.
actually, but I don't know that for a fact.
Yeah, I think it was 3.5, but I think it probably has to do with the preservatives that you use and stuff like that. So, but and if I am wrong, I do have it correct in the paperwork, just not necessarily off the top of my head.
No, I get it. Yeah, you have a lot of information in that domain.
Well, and when you're juggling so many sauces and so many processes, oh man, people ask me what's in this sauce or that sauce, and it's been like 4 years since I made it. I'm like,
food. There's food in
that's
there.
it. I'm not on the line making it anymore, so
Yeah,
I just look
yeah.
at the paperwork.
Yeah. Well, and and that's actually part of that, dealing with all of that different information is part of the reason that I am the process authority. It means that we can set the same set of rules across COPAC clients, because we were having people come in with different process letters from different authorities that had really different rules.
Yeah.
So University of Maine and Cornell tended to have pretty similar rules. 3.8 with a metal cap, invert 5 minutes, that sort of thing. Then there's a whole school of thought that comes out of North Carolina, Tennessee. I don't remember which lab, which school, that that's more of the like invert for 2 seconds and at above 160, or just totally different thresholds. And that just gave me the insight of like, let me research into this and figure out why the rules are so different. What makes what safe. And so I was able to come up with a set of consistent rules that we could use across all of our products. So when my kitchen staff is doing a sauce, they know what the rules are. And it's not going to be them thinking that the temperature threshold is 180, and it turns out on that particular one, it's 185. And then all of a sudden we need to go through and find all the bottles that were bottled between this time and toss them all out because they were bottled at 184, so that's like, it adds a lot. It makes our life a lot easier to have a set of
absolutely.
rules.
Yeah, I mean that's
Awesome.
So
So
do
go
you
ahead.
have any products with like butter or other animal proteins in them?
Nothing with butter. We do make the Keith's sauces, Keith's chicken sauce, burger sauce, taco sauce for the Try Guys. And the chicken sauce has sour cream powder in it. Powder. Yeah, not a liquid, but a powder.
It's still technically an animal product. How much does it change your process when you do that?
But not at all. I mean, it's no, it's still FDA controlled. It's not I don't remember. I remember the threshold when it comes to meat, which is 2% by weight. But I mean, even then, it wasn't 2% by weight of sour cream powder. That would be pretty intense.
Yeah.
But if you're making a pizza, like a frozen pizza, if you can put bacon on top of it, you can put pepperoni on top of it, but it has to be less than 2% by weight, or else it becomes a USDA controlled product, and then the USDA has to come and inspect. And I've got friends who do USDA products like soups and pizzas and stuff like that. And it's a thing. It's a regulatory thing, but it's not that big of a deal. You have to give the USDA you have to have an inspector on site when you're doing the production, and then you have to give them an office space, which I remember when I first heard that, I thought that was crazy because at the time I didn't even have an office space. But
I still don't have an office space.
right. And so yeah, you had to give them an office, you have to give them an office space, and they have to be there for production. And otherwise it's just, a set of rules to follow. So
Yeah, I actually have a sauce at some point I'd like to do that has mayo in it, but I haven't even, I'm not there yet.
Why?
The have you looked into the regulatory side of it? It really may not change anything for you.
Really? Well, I might take a look at it. It's so one of our sauces, I put together a wing sauce, and it has mayo and well, it had originally, it was just a riff I did when I was in the restaurant business with ranch, but I could eliminate most of the ranch product and still make it work. So
and that's what we're doing with the Keith's chicken sauces. It's a ranch sauce, a ranch hot sauce.
Got it.
Now the one thing to be careful of when you're adding fat to a recipe is not so much the regulatory side of it, but the fire safety side of it. If your hoods are not fire rated and you have grease laden vapors, the greases can get into the inside of the hood system, and if anything ignites, it could catch fire. And if you don't have a welded exhaust system, then the fire can escape out into the whole building and burn your whole place down.
Yeah, we work in a kitchen. I am in actually a bakery. I'm working in a bakery.
Nice. Bakery hot sauce.
Yeah,
I heard it's
but
good.
they also have a fryer there, and it's the whole hood.
Yeah, so they've got the whole
it's an
system. Yeah,
old school crazy hood system. This is buildings over 100 years old. So this hood system, when you turn off I mean, every one I've ever worked in, you turn it off, the fans stop. But this is so old, when you turn it off, you can hear water coming down. Like cools everything down on the inside. It's like, I thought the first time I hit the button, I thought, what did I do? Because it just sounds like it started like pouring rain outside.
Oh my gosh, that's really cool.
Yeah, it's kind of awesome.
Well, have you ever had the issue with your hood that it starts snowing under your hood?
I have not in this kitchen, but in another one, we were prepping, and all of a sudden the snow's coming in and like landing on us while we're like topping.
Well, it wasn't when it happened to us. The first time it happened to us, it wasn't snowing outside. It was the condensation from the cold air, from the makeup air, and our hot air going up. It was creating snow just right in the hood.
Oh, I've never had that happen. That's awesome.
Yeah, no, I definitely don't have that problem because this is where I'm at.
Yeah, no, I'd rather be in the cold.
And like I texted you earlier, if we do what we're talking about doing, like I will come to Idaho and make the sauce with you, but I will not do it in the winter.
So we should tell Claire about this, because this is an ongoing. It's going to be an ongoing saga for a while. I want to do $100 hot sauce. I want to do a sauce that has ingredients and production that equals warranting that kind of. I mean, it may end up being, $89.99 or something like that. But the idea is to reach for that goal and have all the processes involved that would warrant that, along with really high-end ingredients. And I've been trying to do it with Zach, and we've been back and forth on what we want to do, sparring here and there. It's been fun. I actually really like this kind of thing. These processes with other people are fun.
Yeah.
And I drive people crazy.
Yeah, a little bit. Sunday, my only day to do anything or do whatever I want that's not hot sauce related, and this motherfucker is texting me about hot sauce shit, and I'm like, hey, I already do this podcast, man. Come on, don't be scooping up any more of my Sundays.
I love talking hot sauce. Like, I love talking shop. I mean, it doesn't actually have to be hot sauce, but that's, it's easier for me to talk hot sauce than it is for me to talk goat's milk caramel with somebody. But
100%. I'm mostly just messing around.
They were making fun of me at my restaurant. One of the other managers walked up in front of me to talk to another manager, and he goes, hey, you know what? They call me, my real name's Chris. Don't call me that, but they do, because that's, they're used to that. And he goes, Chris just texted me. He said, hot sauce, hot sauce, hot sauce, hot sauce, hot sauce, hot sauce, and hot sauce. And he goes, oh yeah, did you text him back? Yes, I did. I said hot sauce. And that's our greeting now whenever I see him, because that's all I ever talk about.
there's another hot sauce maker in my town, and he and I have a kid that's the same age. And so we've ended up at the same birthday parties, and we just stand in the corner and talk hot sauce the whole time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, cause we have the opportunity. What else do you get to do it?
Well, that's
So,
why we started a podcast, so we could do it
Yeah.
and, and tell the whole world.
yeah. Yeah. No, I've really enjoyed listening to your guys' podcast. I really enjoy, makers, sellers, just that world, the business side of the hot sauce world is, not really part of the story out there about hot sauce, which it's just nice to hear people talking about it.
So I tried your sauce, I think for the first time, probably it was the smoked onion.
Yep. It's
Which
our most
I
popular
think is,
sauce.
and I think I tried that for the first time 3 years ago, probably.
Mhm.
And we have a similar sauce, similar tasting sauce,
Yep.
and it was the Vandal pepper sauce. I mean, to me,
Yeah.
it was the Vandal pepper sauce that I took over with, and it had a different, set of ingredients, and I've kind of updated that over the years. But that sauce had a big influence on how I made changes to that sauce. So thank you so much. I love that. That was
Awesome.
great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm a
Well,
fucking asshole, and I have not had any of your products, and I'm really sorry.
Well, why don't we do a trade? Why don't we
Okay.
do? I'll send you some of mine. You send me some of yours.
Okay.
I love trying other people's stuff.
because you haven't had any high desert.
I probably have. So the funny thing is, I am not the chili head of the family. My husband is. And I mostly eat my own sauces. I really
Yeah.
like my sauces, and that's what I tend to eat. But
I am the same way, and that's
yeah. And but my husband, I mean, he eats my sauces too, but he also loves trying everybody else's sauces. So he gets the Heatonist subscription box. He, buys hot sauce at stores. He, does all sorts of hot sauce shopping, and it's great because I don't have to. That he brings them home and I get to taste them and decide, if I want to have more of it or not. And so I'm almost positive that I've had it, that it's something that he's brought home. But honestly, to be sure,
if you got
I'm not sure.
If you got the heat in the sub box, you definitely got a bottle of teacup masala that blew the fuck up in your face.
Well, he doesn't always subscribe to that,
Okay.
but yeah, I heard, I think it was, I don't know where I heard your story about that. It might have been in the hot sauce group or, but then I was just so curious about that, especially because it was a co-packer issue, and we're a co-packer, so I'm always like, crap, what happened? What happened there? And were they not properly heating the sauce? Was that
So I had to send the sauce out to a lab myself to get it tested to see what's going on. There was up to 11 million colony forming units of lactic acid bacteria per gram.
Oh man.
So that tells me that they did not bring anything to temperature.
Yeah. Wow.
Well, what do I know?
Wow. Well, I have a co-pack client who has another co-packer. Like he separates between two just for lots of reasons. And he's definitely that other co-packer's since gone out of business, but I know that he had used to get into some temperature issues or consistency issues. And it's the co-packing arrangement is such a interesting arrangement. And it's really a relationship. And I've absolutely had co-pack clients who I've fired co-pack clients before because we just don't mesh well. And it's, you got to go find somebody else. And I've obviously been fired by co-pack clients before because it doesn't mesh well. And it's, and it's, I think it's easy for, I don't know, it's easy for people who have made a bunch of products and they know what works well for them. But then when you get somebody else's recipe, it's just a different beast. And they, it's really interesting as sauce makers, how we all do things the way we do them because we've always done them that way. And we're all in our own little silo of manufacturing. And then that's one of the things I love about co-packing is that I see how people do things in totally different ways than I would have ever expected. And you would think, how many different ways are there to make hot sauce? And there's a lot.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry you had such an awful experience with a co-packer.
Hey man, Hot Ones was the worst thing that ever happened to Highness. And I mean that with the utmost love. I mean, it's nothing against Hot Ones or Heatness. It's it was a learning experience for sure.
Well, that learning
Yeah.
experience is going to end up helping you in the end, I think. But
Well, yeah,
it's
I
just
mean,
getting to that other
I
side
mean,
that sucks.
It's honestly fucking up somebody else's product is the thing that scares me the most about co-packing. And it's so we have fucked up batches, but it's, you know, nothing on that scale. And it's nothing that we've sent out. We've caught it before it's sent out. We what was there was one batch, this is years ago, it was before the pandemic. I had an employee who didn't know the difference between orange oil and orange extract. It's a little bit of a difference between orange oil and orange extract. And yeah, it was a whole kettle full of sauce. Tasted like an orange creamsicle.
how big are your kettles?
So we have a lot of kettles. We've got a 40-gallon kettle and 80-gallon kettle. Those were our original kettles. We actually had two 40s in our old space, and then one broke and we replaced it with an 80. Those are standalone Cleveland steam jacketed kettles. Then when we moved into our current kitchen, we inherited a lot of equipment from the previous owners of the building. And so we have a 100-gallon kettle that we bottle out of, and it's got it does its own temperature management and agitation. So
Holy
it's
shit.
it's really great. It's a really great kettle. So that is our secret to how we keep that other sauce maintained at temperature. Is that we can set that kettle at a temperature and it'll stay right there. There's a few tricks to not letting it go too high and like getting hot spots and stuff like that. But that's our 100-gallon kettle that we bottle from. We can't do any blending in that kettle, so it always has to be smooth sauce when we put it in there. And then we've got a 200-gallon kettle that we do most of our cooks in. So we cook it in the 200-gallon kettle. It's got a chopper, it's got an agitator, and that both of the 100 and the 200 runs off of a steam, like a big, massive steam boiler in the other room that I affectionately refer to as the pipe bomb. It's gigantic.
Because that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
It is, right? It's a high pressure steam boiler. It is a pipe bomb. It is a big old pipe bomb. Yep. And then since we bought the caramel company, we have we have 9, but we run 6 copper kettles, copper candy kettles that are on candy stoves.
Wow.
Yeah. Yep. We got a whole sea of kettles.
Hang out in Vermont for like
Yeah,
I know.
I am really open to having other sauce makers come and visit. I'm
right?
a really big proponent of sharing information, sharing what we do. I'm really big into collaboration. I'm really big into I'm not one of now just to preface this, you know, we do guard secrets from our co-pack clients. So I don't share that information. But no, in terms of our own information, I feel like I have benefited more from collaboration and sharing than I have from holding my secrets tight and precious under my pile of, that's just not who I am. And collaboration has just benefited us, tenfold at any moment. So
yeah.
Back when Ghost of Saffron was like taking over the internet, or the Facebook groups at least, people would want to come in and watch us make it, talk to me about it, and you know what I mean? I'd get emails from some of the old timers like, "Hey, you're showing too much of your process to people," and I'm like, it's a fucking hot sauce. Anybody who makes hot sauce knows this.
I mean, if they want to do it, it's a lot harder work than it looks.
Exactly. I mean, that's, especially because we started out as a bakery. I mean, like everybody knows how to make a chocolate chip cookie. Like, you read the back of a package and it's going to tell you how to make a chocolate chip cookie. Yet we still like going out there and buying chocolate chip cookies. We're not buying the secrets, the amazing, that we're buying it because it's convenient, it's delicious, we enjoy it. It's not something we want to make at home, not something that we personally have the skill to make at home. I think that there are little things that, especially if I figure out some super special thing, then, maybe I'm going to hold on to it for a minute. And like I said, I keep other people's information secret. We actually do a decent amount of co-packing for celebrities. So there's all kinds of contracts and NDAs and stuff like that associated with that stuff. But it's really, and I'm also good at hiding what I'm not sharing because I seem to share so much. Everybody just assumes I'm sharing it all. But yeah, so I think it's, I get annoyed when people just, we've been getting a lot of press here in Vermont recently, and sometimes we get people who apply for jobs who I realize a little too late or clearly just want to tour the place, and that's annoying. I feel like you're wasting my time. Don't do that, please.
So then,
And we
do
don't.
you also have to sign an NDA with your employees?
So we've talked to lawyers about it. It's a bit of a weird area to do NDAs with employees, because if they have a breach of the NDA, they get fired. What are you going to really achieve from that? They're fired. They're not working anymore. Are you going to get money from them? So it's not, we keep a lot of our, our recipes and our information in, like I told you, my background's computer programming. So we
Mhm. keep
keep that information in secured ways that kind of makes it not easy to share if somebody wanted to do something really stupid, and it's something we're continuing to think about, if we'd have NDAs with employees or not, if there's value in that. We've had specific celebrity clients who have required it for their product. And so we have done it in those cases, but just for like overall, it's not something that we do right now.
So if I'm ever lucky enough to get another Hot Ones order, which I very highly doubt, what would it be? What would it take for like a co-packing situation between
Yeah.
you?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
what's funny too is that we were on season 20 of Hot Ones with Taco Vibes only. Two of our co-pack clients were on season 21 of Hot Ones.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah. And the Heatonist folks didn't realize it until they had already decided their lineup. And then I knew it was going to happen just because we have a good working relationship with the Heatonist. People often come to me with their Heatonist questions. They're like, Heatonist is doing this weird thing. What does it mean? And I'm like, okay, well, if this guy's saying it, it means this. And if this guy's saying it, it means that. So from the questions I was getting from these two co-pack clients, I kind of had an inkling, that
Yeah,
that
to
they were
figure it
probably
out.
going to be, that, but so on the day, because the Heatonist calls everybody on the same day, the day that call was supposed to happen, I got a call in the morning from the Heatonist saying, oh crap, we just realized that both of these people are your clients. Are you able to do this? And it was fine. We were able to do it. It wasn't a problem at all. We're working on, so right now our kind of happy volume is like 4,500 bottles in a day. That's like, we're cruising along doing a happy job. We've been figuring out with those like co-pack client, like when we were doing all that Hot Ones, we were working on new methods to increase that. So our peak is something like 75 or 8,000 bottles in a day, which was kind of a crazy all hands day. We wouldn't be able to do that 5 days a week, but it was what one of the things we struggle with co-pack clients is that it can be very feast or famine. And so we had a point that it was actually when we were making those sauces for Hot Ones, might have been right after that. We had like 5 co-pack clients all just descend upon us all at once. And within like a span of like 3 days, we filled up 8 weeks of our schedule. And I was like, oh crap. And, and clients really don't like to hear that we're scheduling 8 weeks out. And so I'm working on, our Butterfly Bakery days are actually even smaller. Butterfly Bakery is just the best hot sauce, the easiest hot sauce to make. I call myself a lazy baker. They're just our methods, our procedures are just so easy. And so when we do Butterfly Bakery, we do, I don't know, between 2,000 and 3,000 in a day. And what I want is to be able to do a 2,000 or 3,000 bottle day or a 7,500 bottle day, and have it basically be about the same. And that way, when we get these really big orders from co-pack clients, that they don't just obliterate our schedule, that we can do 7,500 bottles of theirs in a day. That might be their entire order, and it doesn't take up an entire week to do it. So we're working on those methods. It's a bit of a juggling act. The 200-gallon kettle kind of limits that. We sometimes have to do multiple cooks to do that, and then then we need to be doing sauces that don't require a 200-gallon cook, which is like the Butterfly Bakery sauces. So yeah, in terms of you and I co-packing together, yeah, it would be usually our process is that we sign an NDA in the beginning, so you feel comfortable that I'm not going to share your secrets or tell anybody anything.
Oh, I got
And yeah, we've got one that we do, and I mean it doesn't change how I behave. It just helps people feel more comfortable that I'm not going to go posting around on the internet, and then usually you would
speaking of
share.
which, real quick, do you
Yeah.
want us to cut out or Spike to cut out the fact that you kind of shared some information about the Keith sauce and an ingredient in there?
Oh, that's not a.
Okay.
There's nothing secret there. Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
there's no secret that we make. Keith talks about the fact that we make his sauces in his
Okay.
videos. So we're good there. And then the fact that it has sour cream powder, it's right there in the ingredient list. So
Okay.
that's
Just want to make sure.
yeah. And there isn't even anything special on how we mix it in. We did have to figure some stuff out so we didn't end up with giant clumps of sour cream powder.
Yep.
But,
I was wondering.
yeah. But other than that, not really complicated. But what we're saying, yeah, so then you would share, after an NDA, you would share the recipe. I would look it over and see if it's something we can do. We do have some limitations in our kitchen. Grease-laden vapors happens to be one of them. It's just really expensive to have a fire-rated Ansel system and the welding, and so we just don't have that, and we don't need it for our sauces. And we have made the realization that we don't make any financial investments for our co-pack clients. If they would like to upgrade, are fabulous on it. We got it.
So that means
but
no fire roasting, probably.
we don't fire roast. We do smoke. We do have a smoker.
Okay.
We have an outdoor area, like we call it a vineyard. It's kind of a porch-ish. I don't know. It's big. It's big and concrete. And we have explored the idea of fire roasting things out there, and so we don't have the equipment for it. So like I said, we don't make capital expenses on behalf of co-pack clients. So you would have to provide some fire roasting equipment, but we've got obscene amounts of propane and electricity in our building, obscene amounts. And the crazy thing is we're actually like close to maximizing it, so I have to explore how to get more, but I'm always just blown away by how much more energy capabilities. It's not even usage, it's capabilities that we have in our building. But I'm going to look into solar power too, to see if that can help alleviate some of that. But yeah, so then, yeah, we see if it's something we can do. We do have ovens, obviously, so we can char things in there to some extent. It's not the same, but we can get some color on them. And yeah, so then we look at that. And then if that's something that we can do, usually we start with a micro batch, or actually even a test batch, which is usually like 5 gallons or so. I can pretty accurately scale from 5 gallons to 40. So we'll do like a 5-gallon batch. If that hits right, then we'll go up to the 40. We can stay at the 40. We could do 40, 80, 120, 200. And that's priced on that. It gets cheaper as you get into the bigger batches. And then that pricing kind of max out at the 200.
So I got a question. So when you do those small, like 5-gallon batches, obviously things change a lot from 5 gallons to 40.
Not as much as you would think.
Really? Because I know when we've upscaled to even like 20 gallons from 5, the thickness is the issue. It just changes, and which can be a real pain in the butt.
So
does it change from when you go from 40 to 80 or up?
Yeah. So from 5 to 40 is usually fine. However, it's because of the way we treat our 5. We know like evaporation is a huge issue. That's really the main issue is evaporation. Evaporation and direct heat. We use indirect heat on all our kettles because they're steam jacketed. And so burning could be an issue, but generally speaking, it's evaporation is the issue. So if we treat that 5-gallon batch correctly, there's really no difference between the 5 and the 40. If I know that somebody got it up to a rolling boil, or we spent too much time going back and forth, sometimes if we don't hit it right, we'll just stick the whole kettle or a whole pot in the cooler, bring it back out, reheat it. That gives us more evaporation. So things like that will tell us that we need to do something to the 40. When we scale from a 40 to a 200, we absolutely have evaporation differences. We get a lot less evaporation in our 200 than we do in our 40 and 80. So that's something we have to reduce the water by a fair amount. I mean, it might be 150 pounds of water that we leave out when
Oh,
we scale
wow.
from that to the 200. Yeah.
I would expect that you'd lose less going up like that, but I wouldn't expect that much.
Well,
That's
yeah. So
amazing.
when you're in like a 40-gallon kettle, all the heat's like condensed. It's in a smaller area,
Yeah.
pushing that steam out.
Well, we also have our 40 is a Cleveland 40 short. So it's much wider and shallower.
Mm,
It's not the really narrow one and tall one that most people have.
that I have, you know.
That was yeah. I think most people have that kind of narrow tall thing. Ours is the same width as our 80, just a lot shorter.
So we're about to start using a steam jacketed kettle. We've got a 40,
Yep.
which, by the way, Zach, I found out is a Cleveland. The company, I forget the name of the company now, but Cleveland bought it out, so they've got all the stuff for it.
Oh, yeah.
So it's
fun
essentially
fact on Cleveland steam jacketed kettles: the company officially in their paperwork refers to them as Cleveland steamers.
that's awesome.
Yep, isn't it?
That is fantastic.
So I know on my kettle, I have to hold when it's not used, it has to have a negative pressure. Is it like that on your standalones?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, on their standalones it is. And it's something that I always have to teach my kitchen crew to watch out for if it's not heating properly, to check that pressure and to vent it if it's not holding pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or holding vacuum. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is all the stuff I'll be learning next week.
Yeah.
We did a test on it. It's working. Now we just got to figure out how to use it.
Yeah. But if you're not holding that negative pressure, you're gonna end up blowing that thing up.
Well, it's actually really more what happens if you don't hold it in negative pressure is that you don't get a good heat transfer because there's air. It's not being held in vacuum. And so it ends up just being really slow. Like really slow. You're like, this should be heating and why isn't it? And it's just,
there's a blow off valve to keep it from blowing up. But
right.
like he's saying, if you don't hold that vacuum, you're gonna be at 30 psi and you're not gonna be hot.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. So you're going to crank it and then, yeah. So actually it is one thing to make sure. Our first kettle was a refurbished one, and the guy, when he refurbished, made the valve to vent it really easy to access. And then when we got the one that was actually from Cleveland, it's a lot harder to reach in there and access. So just make sure you have good access to that spot and know where it is. Because even if you're in the middle of a cook and you're like, I just suspect that's the problem, you can grab that key ring and just give it a little tss, and then you're off to the races.
Oh, that's good to know. Yeah. Awesome.
So how long does it take you to bottle a 200-gallon? First part of the question. And second part of the question is, do you fill that thing 100% or do you only fill it like 90%?
So it depends on the sauce. For filling, answer your second question first. It depends on the sauce. If we've got more, habaneros or anything that's light and fluffy like that, more plant matter, we'll fill it all the way, but it'll reduce down before we pull it out. And then but if it's all, we've got a client who uses purees that they buy in from another company. And so it's just all the purees go in, we fill it right to the brim. We get like 4,700 bottles out of those. And those are so easy to make. It's great.
Right.
Love it.
I say it all the time. If I could go back and start over, I wouldn't fire roast a fucking thing.
Yeah. It's amazing, those things that you start doing in the beginning, because it makes sense at a small level, and then you scale up and you're like, wow, this doesn't make sense anymore, but God, I have to keep doing it.
My favorite thing, when we first started, we did, I'll use this bottle as we did a little Bazooka Joe style comic under the shrink wrap, which was awesome. People loved it, and we did a little snarky little fortune on the back. And so people loved those. And then it was like, 200 bottles at a time, no big deal. And as soon as we doubled that and then doubled again, it was like, oh no, this is not going to work anymore.
Well, ours is that we give out a free bottle of hot sauce every time people order on our website.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know, right? And that seems kind of ridiculous. And it is. And we started doing that back when we didn't have a lot of website sales. And I was like, this is fun. And especially as a bakery, we always have extra stuff.
Right.
And so I would just throw that in. A lot of who was ordering off our website was like friends. And I would be like, oh, it's my friend. Let me just throw a bunch of stuff in that box. And yeah, and then people got used to it. And so we still do it. And
Oh,
we
wow.
go through thousands of bottles of hot sauce. And it's not just hot sauce, but you know, if they're ordering hot sauce, we put in a bottle of hot sauce. If they're ordering granola, we might put in a baked good or something. But and for caramel, we put in caramel. And it's just yeah, thousands, absolutely thousands. And we might switch to a smaller bottle at some point to start doing, wanted to start doing 2-ounce bottles, but 2-ounce bottles aren't that much cheaper to make. And putting the full-size bottles does give us the advantage of being able to get rid of those sauces that aren't moving as well, or just kind of aged out and we're kind of done with. We'll always throw in those bottles first before we throw in our A-line bottles. But
That energy drink hot sauce.
exactly. You know what? Doesn't need to be taking up room anymore. You can just throw it in a
That's
pack.
a great idea.
Like, not my problem anymore. Yeah.
So we are at 5:15.
Oh, wow. This has flown by. Well,
Yeah.
I have a couple quick questions for you
Yeah.
then we do this. So first of all, the last sauce. If you were on not a desert island, that's the old one.
Death roll.
Death row. Yeah.
Death row meal. What's your death row meal?
Yeah,
And
death
then
row
what
meal.
hot sauce you putting on it?
God, what is my death row meal?
It's the food.
You know, I mean, shoot. So I don't know what my death row meal is. I feel like it's my death row meal is going to be something that has sentimental value to me. You know, if I was talking about my childhood, it'd be my dad's grilled soup, or you know, nowadays, you know, the meals that we make here at home that the whole family loves. My husband makes best breakfast sandwiches, and you know, so the death row meal is going to be those sentimental things. And I think just depend on when I made it to death row, what was sentimental at that point. What sauce I'd put on it.
Oh, yeah, there's a qualifier on this. I'm sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt, but it has to be somebody else's, not yours or ours.
Right. So
It makes it a lot harder.
right, yeah, put smoked onion on it. I put smoked onion on everything. So if you know, like I said, I don't eat that much sauce. That's not my own,
Yeah.
but that's actually not true. There have been a few sauces that I've had over the years that have really stood out to me that I remember. I really liked Heartbeat's Peri Peri. Do you remember that? The Lion's Mane
Yeah.
Peri Peri. That was fantastic. I love a good peri peri, and Heartbeat sauces are awesome. I recently, you know, you told me to bring a sauce, and I went to the New York Hot Sauce Expo, and I went there as a customer. I didn't. I wanted to go there and meet people and say hi. I didn't want to. But do you guys know these? It's all blurry. Can you see
Uh-oh.
it? No, yeah, it's not going to come through. But the Donis. Do you know that company?
No.
They do. They were on the same season as we were for Taco Vibes Only, and they had the Cadejo.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And it was the one that I always found really funny because it looked all ominous and scary, and it was like number 3 sauce. And then there's my like happy-go-lucky Taco Vibes Only sauce at number 9 that was all like cheery. Like, I thought it was if anybody lined them up, they definitely would switch those too. But yeah, so when I was there, I got this like teak belong sauce, and it's like it's got ube in it, and like red Thai chili and red onion and scallion. It's got a lot of onion, and I really like onions. And it's got some agave and some coconut vinegar and blackened coconut. It's really cool. So I really enjoyed this one, and like I've been pulling this one out of the fridge regularly to enjoy it. It's got a nice like fresh chunkiness to it. It's great.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's good, because that was the next transition, was what our hot sauce show and tell is. Zach, do you have your hot sauce show and tell?
No.
No, you don't.
I can't eat spicy shit right now.
Oh, that's right. Okay, that's totally understandable. Well, I have Hawaiian hot teas. They sent me some sauce.
Is that
and-
the fucking green one?
Yeah, sup, brah. I haven't.
What's up, brah? Second ingredient in that is cilantro. So if you don't like cilantro,
Oh, I love
cilantro.
cilantro. Yeah, you're just one of those people.
no, I'm not one of those people.
But I gotta say, guys, no,
Well,
The
well,
regular orifice reducer.
okay. In all fairness, he buys that bottle setup, like the bottle. That cap is just a little bit taller than the caps you and I use, so he has to put that stupid thing on there.
Oh,
Otherwise,
really?
the bottles won't seal. Yeah,
Oh,
Can't he
wow.
put a different cap on there?
I mean, he's in Hawaii.
Yeah,
I
he
don't
only
know what
has
sorting is
access
like
to.
in
Wait,
Hawaii.
It's
You
so
know what I
hard.
mean?
And
gonna
which
try this.
company is that?
Hawaiian hot teas, I think.
I don't know
The
if I've seen
cilantro is
that one.
really coming through. It is really good. Wow. Nice, mild, medium heat, mild heat.
Yeah.
This is really good.
If I like cilantro, yeah, it would be a delicious sauce. Oh, you know what? Hang on, I'll be right back. Oh,
You were going to the back, so I just thought I'm gonna change my battery real quick so I don't run out and just you have my
why
phone.
don't you just get one you can charge, dude?
Because
Like plug it into your computer and then it has power.
I have a good camera on here. It's just,
Well, it's obviously not that good if you got to change the fucking batteries every time we do a podcast.
Well, I mean, if we go long, it's all right. I don't mind going long. I just gotta take 30 seconds. That's all. There we go. See? Done. I just gotta put it back on and we're ready to rock. Zach's so impatient.
Hey, man, like I said, Sunday is my one day to not have to do anything hot sauce related. Yet here I am every fucking week.
You know you love it.
Most of the time I do, but there are days where I'm like, fuck, man, I do not want to do this.
My favorite days are the days that when you and I'm probably not going to edit this out too much, but I mean, you guys, the coughing and that.
What? We can't hear you. What?
I'm probably going to leave some of this in, but I just need to tell you, I like the days when you're not wanting to do it.
Still can't hear you.
I like the days when you're not wanting to do it and you come in and you've had a wonderful conversation. Those are my favorites.
Okay, so I'm breaking the rules and I don't give a fuck because the rules are meant to be broken.
Well, we make the rules.
I have some Irish Spikes ketchup. Fun guy ketchup. No
That's
heat.
awesome. Yeah, we made it porcini mushroom, roasted red pepper, and tomato.
Oh, that sounds great.
I fucking hate ketchup and we have a bottle of this in the house.
That makes me so happy.
Yeah.
So wait, so you make ketchup?
Yes.
So what do you start with a tomato puree or do you have equipment to get it down to the sheer ketchup?
We use the tomato puree. We're
Tomato puree.
yeah. I at some point I'd love to be able to do all of it, but we just don't have it where we're at right now.
That it's one of the big limitations that we have because we have to start with Vermont produce, that we have to be able to break it down all the way. And there's absolutely recipes that we'll do for co-pack clients, and we'll specifically develop them for co-pack clients, but like we could never do for Butterfly Bakery because we're starting with an already processed ingredient.
And breaking down tomatoes takes forever.
We've gotten pretty good at it. I mean, we can't get that tomato texture, but for ketchup, that requires a Boston shear mill. And we've looked into high shear mills before. And besides the fact they're incredibly expensive, like a Boston shear mill is like $250,000. You also need to break it down ahead of that. You can't just stick a whole tomato in one of these things. So you have to have like a chopper and then like an immersion blender and then another mill. And like, you have to like get smaller and smaller. Otherwise you get blinding. And it just, I was like, I'm not going to do that. No.
I had a conversation with somebody yesterday at the farmer's market who used Alton Brown's ketchup recipe. And we're so mad at him because it's so long. And then like a day later, they went and had the Portland ketchup. I don't know if you've ever had that. It's really good. But Portland, there's like a Portland ketchup. And it's pretty well known in the Northwest. And they had it and it was just
well, and we've worked with a tomato mill before, and you get a pretty smooth product. One of the issues we run into is Vermont has a lot of water. We have an obscene amount of water
and good water.
It is good water, but it gets into our produce. And so the water, even the paste tomatoes that we get are really watery. And so we already separate out the water, 50% by weight. We're separating out and pouring down the drain, which kills me because it's really tasty stuff. But just to get it to a thickness that people recognize. Otherwise it's just,
I talked about it in one of our episodes, how our ghostly prick has been the most inconsistent sauce when it comes to consistency because of the red bell peppers and the water content.
Yeah.
I rectified that shit though.
Yeah, this summer, obviously we got a lot of rain here in Vermont, and fruit has been so watery. Like the fruit this summer has just honestly been pretty awful because it just tastes like sour water.
Do you have any questions for us?
What made you guys want to do this show?
Spike begged me for like 3 months.
So here's the thing. Zach and I started our companies about the same time, and we connected. And you're talking about, not keeping secrets. It's so funny. We were both figuring out like processes or anything.
The FDA website, actually.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, we've been doing it like this. And I sent him what I thought was just one of our recipes. I thought that'll help. I sent him everything. And I was like, I already I trusted him. I didn't care, and it was fine. I didn't have anything to hide. And I could walk in a grocery store and create I can't stop myself. My wife wishes I would.
I used to make hot sauces at home, and when I would exercise, my exercise clothes would smell like hot sauce because they were just in the house with all the vinegar.
Yeah. I so much better than when I used to work in a fish restaurant and I smelled like fish all the time. I like smelling like hot sauce. That's all right.
Yeah. No, basically a few months ago, Spike reached out. He's like, hey man, I want to do this podcast. I'm like, cool, enjoy that, have fun. He's like, but I want to do it with you. And I'm like, man, I don't want to be on camera. I don't want to. I fucking hate the camera, dude. Like I don't want to do it. I wanted it for months. And he's like, come on. Just try it. So here we are.
Every time Zach and I get on the phone, we're on the phone for an hour and a half to 2 hours talking about hot sauce. And I was like, well, why don't we just do this with people? And mostly bitching about the way people are doing the process wrong. There's so many cowboy hot sauce companies. And I'm like, so what if we create something that shows, like, because we just had no clue, create something that shows the right way to do things, or at least us exploring the right way to do things.
Yeah.
And we can do it at all levels. And I love that. And I've learned so much in the last 3 months, 2 months, whatever we've been doing it. It's been fantastic.
Yeah. Tim Pullman episode was very informative.
Yeah. And
which episode?
Yeah. Tim from Pullman Acres, California Hot Sauce Solutions.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Probably my favorite episode so far. Up until this one. No, I told you while we were talking that this is going to be my new favorite episode.
I mean, I genuinely can tell you this is my new favorite episode. I really enjoyed this.
Awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, I can talk hot sauce forever and hopefully not bore too many people with rules, but I think rules are great.
Yeah, I mean they're there for a reason,
Yeah.
I say it all the time. And I'm not shy about it. I didn't always do things the legal way. The second someone reached out, you know what I mean? Another company, Thomas Toff, reached out. I was like, hey, bro, that doesn't look commercial kitchen. I looked into it. I was like, oh, okay. Let's shut the company down, and get legit. It's the people that, you kind of bring to attention. Hey, this isn't exactly legal. And they're like, I don't fucking care. Go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, it's Vermont's a really interesting place to be because there's a real the food community here, the food maker community is really supportive and people help each other out. They everybody's been a little proprietary with their employees recently because we don't have enough of them, but for the most part, everybody it's a really, really great community. And every once in a while we get people like that who are just like, I'm just going to do things my way. And I'm not going to follow any rules. And I'm just going to, and all of us kind of look at that person and are like, you're not going to get very far. Like it's, there's also such an element of quality here that with food that, everybody around them goes, what are you doing? But I remember somebody, they did dog treats, so it wasn't human food. And he told me on the sly, as if I was supposed to really commiserate with him, that his gluten-free dog treats weren't actually gluten-free because the flour was too expensive. Why?
You could fucking kill somebody.
Right? And I guess he was like, it's a dog, who cares? But I'm like, it doesn't matter. They're buying gluten-free dog treats. Make them gluten-free. It's not that hard.
Imagine if like the person touching the dog treat had like severe celiac disease and it's like gluten-free on the fucking. That's why none of our packaging says vegan. It doesn't say gluten-free. It doesn't say none of that shit because none of it's certified, I'm not certified gluten-free.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I don't get when people do that. I feel like, and I do admit that, here in Vermont, regulations are generally reasonable. So I do realize, like, in some places, you get the inspector who just wants to find the faults and see, and and nail you for it or something. And we just don't have that in Vermont. If they find a problem, they just want to help you fix it.
I
And
love Vermont. It's a great it really is. We used to I've never been up that far, but we used to visit Vermont, southern Vermont all the
Yeah.
time when we were in Amherst. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's great here. I'm not from Vermont. I'm from California, but I moved here right after college, and it's just this is where I want to be.
Yeah. We almost moved there. Came really close. We were going to move to Brattleboro.
Well, if you decide to do that now, there's not enough housing by
Oh.
like a really long shot.
That was why we
Every-
didn't then. And
It's gotten so much worse.
then we almost moved to Maine, and then somewhere along the
Mhm.
line, Idaho came up, and I don't know. But I'm originally from Riverside, California.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm originally from Berkeley, so
Oh yeah, that's awesome. Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much. It's been a wonderful time.
yeah, this has been a lot of fun. And if you guys want to make it up to Vermont, I would love to show you around.
We
Yeah,
may
I
very
don't
well
do
take
cold.
you up on that.
I do not
gets-
do cold. Not
It
at
gets
all.
hot and humid in the summer.
Yeah, it does.
Spring or fall. Growing up in Philadelphia, those are my two favorite seasons.
Do you get
'Cause-
those
So-
flies that bite in summer? Oh, those are
Horse
Yeah,
flies,
black
man.
flies.
Horse fly. Yeah.
no,
Yeah,
there's something else. What are they called?
we get black flies.
Yeah, black
Yeah.
flies are awful.
Yeah. But we don't, black flies are really sucky flyers. They're not good at flying. So when you're in a city or any sort of place with like car traffic, that air that moves a lot, they're not an issue. They're really only an issue when you're out in the woods.
Oh, that's good to know.
So yeah. But if you come in the fall, it's really expensive. It's absolutely beautiful, but really expensive because everybody else comes in the fall. If you come in the spring, it's a lot cheaper, but really ugly because we call it stick season. So, or mud season.
Yeah,
Mud
Yeah,
season.
no, I grew up in Philadelphia, right outside of Philadelphia, kind of, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Cold, dreary, gray winters, and then you got kind of spring, first spring. Just kidding. Back to yeah.
Oh yeah.
I know about all the sub seasons.
Yeah.
And it's like that here, but it's like a milder version of it. So we're in Moscow, Idaho, right next to the border of Washington. So we're in
Yeah.
northern Idaho, but it's I remember moving here from Massachusetts, and in Massachusetts it was winter, not
Yeah.
I mean nowhere near probably what you're getting, but still pretty bad. And moved here, and winter happens, but it's like, oh,
Yeah.
this is, we just got 8 inches of snow, and that's a lot here.
Well, yeah, I lived in Ohio for 4 years, and yeah, it was kind of like that. We'd get like,
Oh.
a couple inches, and that was it. And that was, yeah. Zach, you would probably get along with my hot sauce supervisor, my lead kitchen supervisor. She loves Philly. She went to CIA, and she did her initial training in the kitchen world down in Philly. And we have our dishwasher is from Philly now, and she just keeps going on about Philly, and it just she loves it there. So and she loves people from Philly.
I don't know why.
They
We're
might
kind of
get along.
rude. We don't
I
have a
think she loves
filter.
it. When I hired this dishwasher, she was like, "Thank you." Like she was so
Yeah,
excited.
we're like our own species, kind of.
Mhm.
We talk different. Yeah, I don't. You gotta be from Philly to understand. Wooder, you know what Wooder is?
I was talking to Helen about you the other day, Zach, and I was telling my wife, Helen, and I was telling her that what I like the most about Zach is he has absolutely no filter.
Well, that's funny because I actually do. I mean, I said most of what I thought. Like,
But I
have to hold a lot back, man. Especially, you know how it is being a small business owner. You can't protect yourself too much of an asshole.
But just that when you always know where you stand with somebody because they're gonna
Yeah.
tell you right then and there. Oh, it's
Yeah.
it's a golden. You love that.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's great.
I'll let Spike know immediately if he's texting me too much. Like, hey, man, I don't want to fucking talk right now.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
And I'll say it just like that. He's
Yeah.
like, cool. Talk to you later.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. I mean, it is what it is.
Well, I hope you all have a wonderful evening. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it was great to be here.
Yeah.
Great talking to you guys.
Yeah.
Take care now. Flavor Balance Heat, the podcast for hot sauce lovers and makers, was brought to you by Irish Spike's Unique Hot Sauces, High Desert Sauce Co., and Vandal Pepper Sauces. This is a Spike Mine Media production.